When Judge Martinez began listing what I owned, I finally looked up at the man who used to be my husband. Tom Bennett stood there looking frozen, like someone had just thrown ice water on him. His eyes got really big and his mouth hung open. Tiny drops of water appeared on his forehead. A beautiful apartment, 900 square feet, in the heart of downtown Seattle, the judge read in a flat voice. Tom looked like someone had hit him with a baseball bat. He couldn't move or speak, just standing there shaking. A house in the suburbs of Green Valley, 1,400 square feet with a big backyard. Judge Martinez continued reading from her papers. A building on Main Street that's rented out as a fancy coffee shop. This is completely wrong. Tom's mother, Linda Bennett, jumped up from her seat screaming. Her face turned bright red like a tomato. That girl doesn't own anything. She couldn't even buy herself a nice coat. She's been wearing the same old jacket for years. The judge looked at her with angry eyes over her glasses. Be quiet in my courtroom, Mrs. Bennett. If you yell one more time, the guard will make you leave. Linda sat down hard but kept whispering mean things. Her eyes stared at me like she wanted to hurt me. I remembered when I first met Linda 7 years ago. She opened her big front door and hugged me, saying, "My Tom finally found a nice girl. You come from a good family, dear." She was checking me out back then, looking at my simple clothes and the tiny apartment my grandma left me when she died. Linda thought I was safe and easy to control. Boy, was she wrong about that. Everything changed so much since that first day. Tom and I met at a special place in California where people go to get better after accidents. I was there because my back hurt really bad from a car crash that also killed my boyfriend 5 years before. That crash broke more than just my bones. It broke my whole world apart. I lived alone in a small apartment and worked as someone who counts money at a hospital. My life was quiet and sad. Tom was 38 and always wore fancy clothes. He was there taking a break from his stressful job selling things for a big company. He looked successful, tall and strong, with a smile that made me forget to be careful. I was 32 and feeling very weak and alone. He came into my life like a thunderstorm. He gave me expensive gifts and flowers that filled my whole apartment with their smell. 2 months after we came back to Seattle, he asked me to marry him at a restaurant with candles. He promised me a comfortable life and a real family. I thought his strong feelings meant he loved me. We had a small, simple wedding. I didn't want something big and fancy. His parents quickly told us that instead of a party, we should buy property with the money. I agreed without really thinking about it. Linda was cold at first but very polite. The kind of polite that feels like a test. I tried to tell myself this was just a mother checking if I was good enough for her son. Robert, my father-in-law, was quieter and kinder, but he always did whatever his wife told him to do. The first year of being married looked really happy. We rented a nice apartment near Tom's good job, got into our routine, and made plans for the future. I kept my money-counting job, and Tom's career kept getting better. We were like a perfect couple in a magazine, visiting Linda and Robert on weekends for big dinners that Linda loved to cook. The happy times ended when I got pregnant. First, everyone was so excited. Linda, who never showed her feelings, actually cried real tears. Finally, a grandchild. I just know it's going to be a boy. Tom was more worried than anyone, buying me every vitamin in the store and signing me up for the best baby doctor in Seattle. He wanted everything to be perfect. But during the second checkup, Dr. Williams, a nice but serious doctor, looked worried while checking the screen that shows pictures of babies inside mommies. "See this part here, Emma?" She pointed to the fuzzy picture of our tiny baby. "Looks a bit thick. This might mean something could be wrong. I'm sending you to special doctors who can check better." The next 2 weeks felt like being trapped in a dark room. Blood tests, uncomfortable procedures, meetings with people who study genes, and waiting forever for answers. Tom, who used to be so caring, became quiet and distant. He spent his evenings staring at the TV without sound. Linda, every time I saw her, didn't comfort me. She just complained, "Why is God punishing us? Nobody in our family has ever been sick. Is this some kind of punishment?" The final answer hit me like a truck. Autism spectrum disorder with developmental delays. You need to understand, Emma, the specialist, a woman with kind but tired eyes, said softly. The timing allows for ending the pregnancy if you choose. You need to think carefully with your husband about how hard raising a special needs child will be. I didn't need to think. I didn't need to make lists of good and bad things. A tiny person was growing inside me. A child who already felt like the only bright thing left in my world. The last ultrasound showed it was a girl, my daughter. Even if she was born different, she would be mine. She was the one good thing to come from all my sadness over the last 5 years. I'm keeping the baby, I said strongly, my voice cutting through the quiet office. Tom, who had been staring out the window at the cars below, said nothing at all. The real explosion happened that night at his parents' perfect house. Linda Bennett screamed so loud the fancy light above us seemed to shake. Have you lost your mind completely? Why would you bring that broken child into the world? You'll destroy your life, Tom's job, and all of us. Get rid of it now before it's too late, Emma. Mom, please calm down, Tom tried to say. But I could see in his eyes that he agreed with her. He was already on her side. I can't do that, I replied, holding the chair arms tight, trying to stay calm, trying to protect the baby inside me. This is my child. Your child. Linda screamed, holding her chest. It's going to be a weight around your neck forever. Do you understand what your life will become? Tom wanted a normal family, normal kids. Patricia, please lower your voice, Robert whispered, shrinking into his corner of the couch. And don't you dare call me by my first name, you foolish girl. She pointed her shaking finger right at me, forgetting all her rules about being polite. You are not welcome in this family anymore. Either you get rid of that freak or you get out. Tom, tell her she has to choose. Tom never said anything clear. He just drove me back to our apartment in complete silence, feeling sorry for himself. That night, as I lay in bed unable to sleep, he sat on the edge without touching me. Listen, Emma, he whispered with no warmth in his voice. Maybe Mom is right. Why do we need this struggle? You're still young. We can try again later for a healthy baby, a normal one. I turned my head and saw it clearly in his eyes. Not sadness or disappointment, but disgust. He didn't see a person in me or in our daughter. We were just a problem he wanted to throw away like broken toys. Leave, I said, and that single word was heavier than any scream. Just go, Tom. I spent the rest of the pregnancy in quiet sadness. Tom officially stayed with me, sleeping in the extra room, but he lived his own life. He came home late, left early and barely talked. He stopped coming to doctor visits, saying work was too busy. Linda called every week with the same cruel question in a fake sweet voice. Well, have you come to your senses, Emma? It's not too late to fix this mistake. I had not come to my senses. Lily was born on a cold December morning. She was tiny, wrinkled, and definitely had features that showed her condition. But when the nurse placed her warm little body on my chest and she opened her eyes, so clear and trusting, a huge protective love swept through me like a wildfire. I knew for sure that I had made the only right choice. Tom came to the hospital only on the 4th day. He stood by the baby bed, looked down at his sleeping daughter for maybe 20 seconds, and just said, "Well, I hope you're happy now." He didn't touch her. He didn't come near me. He left without another word. Lily's first year was exhausting and never-ending. Doctor visits, development tests, and meetings with special teachers for movement, daily skills and speech. Children with autism need constant help and practice. I quit my money-counting job. I couldn't leave her with anyone, especially not Tom's family. He gave me money, yes, but he always complained. How much more can you spend on doctors? She'll never be normal anyway. Are you trying to make me broke? Linda completely refused to even admit her granddaughter existed. When I tried to bring Lily to their house, they said no in the meanest ways. Don't bring that creature here. Makes my blood pressure go up. This is punishment for your stubbornness, Emma. Being so alone was crushing. My own parents had died years ago. My old friends had disappeared when I was grieving after the accident. Tom's family completely ignored me and the child. Tom started coming home drunk more and more, or not coming home at all. When Lily turned 16 months old, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. I walked into the hallway and heard Tom talking quietly on the phone. He hadn't heard me coming. "Of course I love you," he was saying softly with warmth he never used with me anymore. "It's just a difficult situation right now, a little problem. Yes, I know you want a baby, and I want a normal, healthy baby, not—" He paused, laughing in a scary way. "We'll start trying as soon as I handle this situation and file the papers." I quietly closed the door. Something inside me broke completely, but the breaking was silent. There wasn't even anger left, just cold emptiness and strange relief. Now at least everything was honest and out in the open. The time for love was over. Now it was time for fairness. The next day, after Tom left for work, I sat at the computer. For the first time since Lily was born, I searched for something for myself. It started by accident, a tiny opportunity in the darkness. In an online group for moms of special needs children, someone posted a help wanted ad. "Need consultant for creating new learning materials for children with autism. Pay $250. I answered right away without much hope. 3 days later, a small book company in Boston called. They were starting a new line of special books and needed expert parents who understood what these children really need. I talked with them for a long time, explaining everything I'd learned in 16 months of non-stop teaching myself. They paid me the promised money, but more importantly, they offered me steady work helping them. That small steady pay was the seed of my new life. Tom didn't notice anything. In his selfish world, I was still the thrown-away stay-at-home mom stuck in the apartment with a broken child. I hid the small checks, opening a bank account using my old name before marriage, Emma Foster. In the first few months, I was making $300 to $500 helping create learning programs and quietly writing articles for special parent websites using a fake name. The big breakthrough happened when I met Jessica Park, the mother of a girl with severe ADHD, in an online support group. Jessica, who used to design products, complained loudly that she couldn't find good learning toys that were affordable, strong, and made specifically for kids who learn differently. "You know what?" I typed back to her one late night, feeling brave. "Let's stop complaining and make them ourselves. I'll handle the teaching part and the money. You handle the design and making them." A week later, we registered a small company in Washington State called Bright Minds Learning Tools. Jessica had a connection with a small workshop owner near Tacoma who was struggling, and she handled making the products. I handled creating them and, most importantly, selling them. Using the desperate need of the parent groups I was already part of, we sold the first batch of 80 special learning card sets in 10 days. The second batch, 150 sets, sold out in 1 week. By the end of the first year, we had launched a full online store, and Jessica and I were each making $3,500 to $5,500 every month. Tom remained completely blind to it all. He had stopped caring what I did inside our apartment walls. His girlfriend, as I learned from accidentally hearing another phone call, was a young, pretty gym teacher named Sophia who was 10 years younger than me and dreaming of a wedding. Linda sometimes called no longer to beg but to deliver fresh poison. I hear Tom found a normal woman, young and pretty, and they want children, normal children. You understand. You destroyed his life with your stubbornness, you terrible person. I listened silently to her mean words, then hung up and went back to my work spreadsheets. I didn't have time for her noise. I was quietly building a fortress for my daughter and me. Lily grew. Her development was slower than other children, always climbing uphill, but she was making amazing progress. She started walking at 26 months and speaking her first words at 3. She was the most loving and happy girl. When I brought her to specialists at the development center, everyone admired her strong progress and bright personality. Tom's neglect became total. He could go months without even seeing his daughter, even though we shared the same roof. I knew the marriage was a destructive lie, but I wasn't ready to act yet. I needed 2 things: time to grow the business and money power. By the time Lily turned 3.5, I could easily afford real independence. Bright Minds was booming. Jessica and I had expanded our products to include special fidget tools and custom books, hired 4 part-time workers, and started selling in 5 states. My personal hidden income had grown to over $9,000 every month. I made my first major move, a deliberate act of money revenge. I bought the apartment, 900 square feet of sunny freedom in my own name using money from my business account, then paid off the rest over 7 months. It was in a family-friendly neighborhood with a nice playground, and most importantly, it was walking distance from the development center. Tom, who only glanced at our shared bank account, never noticed the money movement from my separate secret bank. Then came the suburban house 40 miles outside the city, a place for peace and quiet. It was cheap because it needed fixing up, but the big backyard was perfect for the garden I dreamed of growing with Lily. I filed the ownership papers under my legal name, Emma Foster. My final purchase was the small business space downtown, the property on Main Street. I took out a small short-term business loan and paid it off in 4 months using my saved business profits. Renting it out as a coffee shop brought in a steady $700 every month, which I immediately put into Lily's trust fund. In 3.5 years, while Tom entertained his girlfriend and publicly complained about the normal family he could never have, I had transformed from a thrown-away, money-helpless housewife into a powerful businesswoman worth over $1,200,000. I was ready. And now in this stuffy Seattle courtroom, where my special needs child had been called a burden, where my mother-in-law was whispering curses, and where the man I married was demanding to keep some of our stuff, they were finally learning the truth. The total value of what the wife owns, the judge looked up from her papers with no expression, is confirmed at $1,200,000. Tom grabbed the edge of the table so hard the wood made a creaking sound. He turned white as paper. I met his eyes for the first time in a year and smiled. It was a cold, satisfying smile of complete victory. "This is impossible," Tom stammered, looking at me like I was a stranger. "Where did you get that? You weren't working. You had no income." "The husband claims the wife was not working," Judge Martinez stated, looking over her glasses with barely hidden disgust. "I have documents here proving that Mrs. Bennett is a 50% co-owner of a successful multi-state learning tools company, does special consulting work, and has steady income averaging $9,000 monthly over the past year. All income is official, taxes are paid, and the documents are perfectly in order. Your Honor," my lawyer David Chen, a smart gray-haired man I'd hired 2 months earlier, said smoothly, leaning back in his chair like a confident hunter. Linda let out a strangled sound and grabbed her chest dramatically. Robert, looking completely defeated, scrambled to find her heart pills, which she carried everywhere and used every chance to show how much I was hurting her health. "You're a thief," she suddenly screamed, pointing her shaking finger at me. "You stole from my son. That's his money. He supported you all these years. Order." The judge hammered her wooden hammer. "Order." "Mrs. Bennett," David Chen said calmly, turning toward the public seats. "All the property and income my client acquired were earned by her personally, or clearly through the business she created and ran alone. Your son, Tom Bennett, has no claim to this. But I gave her money." Tom finally found his voice, high and desperate. "I supported her and the child. That means I deserve half of that business." "You deserve what exactly, Mr. Bennett?" David Chen opened his file to the exact record of support payments. "Let's look at the support payments you made. According to bank statements over the last 3.5 years, you transferred an average of $1,100 per month for the child. Considering your official income of $6,800, that's about 16%. That's perhaps adequate but hardly generous for a special needs child." I remembered every single one of those monthly transfers. I remembered the screaming fits Tom would throw every time I asked for a few hundred more for a new specialist or expensive therapy equipment for Lily. He'd shout that I was bleeding him dry, that the child was taking everything, that normal kids didn't cost this much. $1,100 a month for a child needing constant specialist visits, expensive learning materials, special food, and weekly therapy sessions. I spent 8 times that amount on Lily, and it all came from my own money that I earned, managed, and grew. "Furthermore, Your Honor," David Chen continued, his voice heavy with finality. "I have witness statements from neighbors and friends confirming that for the last 18 months, the husband has not actually lived at the registered home address but has been living only with his girlfriend. We also have clear evidence that the husband systematically avoided helping raise the child, refused to take his daughter to doctors, and showed zero interest in her health, development, or education." "That's a lie. I was just working a lot." Tom jumped up, face red. "Working for the family, for our future." "Which family, Tom?" I finally spoke, leaning forward, my voice surprisingly calm and clear. "The one where you called your daughter broken and a burden. Or the one you were planning to build with your girlfriend, Sophia." He froze, mouth hanging open. "I have recordings, Tom." I nodded to my lawyer, who pulled out a voice recorder that looked tiny and harmless. "I started recording our conversations 7 months ago when I realized divorce wasn't enough. I needed protection." David Chen pressed the button, and the courtroom filled with Tom's voice, raw and pathetic. "I'm tired of all of this, Sophia. I'm tired of living with that broken kid. I want a normal family. You understand? Normal kids. And Emma is a stubborn fool who ruined my life. We should have gotten rid of it when the doctors first told us." Linda turned deathly pale. Tom grabbed his head, his world visibly falling apart. "That's not what I meant," he mumbled weakly. "And here's another recording, Your Honor." The lawyer switched tracks instantly. The next voice was Linda's, mean and triumphant, talking to her son 2 months ago. "Finally, you're divorcing her. Take the house, Tom. She's nobody. She has nowhere to go with her brat. Let her move wherever she wants, and you can live normally with your Sophia. She'll give you healthy, handsome children, unlike that one." Silence hung in the air, thick and poisoned. Judge Martinez looked at Linda with open disgust, like she was looking at garbage. "I didn't mean that," my mother-in-law stammered, looking around frantically. "I was just worried about my son's future." "Enough," the judge raised a tired but firm hand. "We move on to dividing the property." Tom's lawyer, a young man with an arrogant look who clearly hadn't done his homework, argued about jointly earned property, saying the wife couldn't have built a successful business if the husband hadn't provided the basic structure of a family. David Chen calmly, surgically destroyed every argument. "The apartment was bought with my client's personal money in her name. I have the entire documented financial history. The house is the same. The business property is the same. The business is registered to my client and a partner. Tom Bennett has no legal, fair, or moral claim to any of it. But we were married for 3.5 years. Tom started screaming, desperation overcoming his caution. "Everything earned during marriage is shared." "Not everything, Mr. Bennett," the judge patiently explained, leaning into her microphone. Section 42 of the family law states that property acquired by one spouse through individual business activity is his or her personal property. Your wife created the business independently without using your money. All documents confirm this fact. I demand payment." Tom shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "I supported her while she stayed home. That's also a contribution to the marriage. You supported the family by doing your minimum duty as a husband and father." My lawyer cut in, his voice like steel. "And you did it poorly. My client, in contrast, not only provided for herself and the child independently, but also contributed much more to household expenses than you. Here is the proof." He pulled out another perfect file. "Here are the receipts for apartment rent for the last 2.5 years. Payment was made from my client's personal business account. Here are checks for groceries, children's clothes, medicine, and development sessions, all from her separate personal funds. The picture, Your Honor, is quite clear. You were formally married, but for the last 2.5 years, each of you was living on your own income, with the crucial difference that my client spent hers only on the child and the household, while the husband spent his exclusively on his personal life. I had collected every single receipt, every bank statement, every canceled check for 2 years, knowing this day would come. I scanned them, saved them in a special protected folder, and backed them up online, ready for this moment. We move to the question of where the child will live," the judge said, shuffling papers. The husband requests that the minor, Lily Bennett, live with the mother. The wife does not object. I do not object, I confirmed quietly. Actually, I object now. Tom unexpectedly cut in, his voice cracking. He was scrambling, seeing his money future disappear. Everyone, including his own mother, stared at him. Tom, what are you doing? Linda whispered. Shut up, Mom. He shook his head violently. I want the child to stay with me. I'm her father. May I ask about the sudden reason for this decision? David Chen asked, his tone icy cold. Considering the husband's complete lack of involvement in the child's upbringing over the last 3.5 years. I'm her father. Tom nervously licked his lips. I have the right, and besides, the mother doesn't have proper living conditions. She lives in a rented apartment. My client has her own apartment of 900 square feet bought with cash, the lawyer reminded him dryly, as well as a suburban house. Her living conditions are more than adequate and clearly better than the husband's current situation. But she works too much now. Who will watch the child? Tom was grasping at anything. My mom can help. The same mother who, according to sworn testimony and recording evidence, called your daughter a brat and a burden and refused to see her for all 3.5 years of her life. The judge looked through the papers, her expression hardening. Do you truly believe that is a suitable candidate for taking care of a child? Linda winced, finally silent. Furthermore, the judge continued, according to the Child Protective Services report, the mother's living conditions fully meet all requirements. The apartment has a special children's room with every necessary tool for a child with special needs. The mother consistently takes the child to every doctor and specialist, and is actively engaged in her development. You, Tom Bennett, according to that same report, have not visited your daughter at home even once in the last 10 months. I was working. Tom weakly tried to justify himself. Working or living with your girlfriend. The judge countered. I have testimony from 3 witnesses confirming you were living at a different address for 12 months. She took off her glasses and tiredly rubbed her nose. You know, Mr. Bennett, in 18 years on the bench, I've seen many custody fights. But do you genuinely want to keep the child? Or is this just a cynical last attempt to avoid mandatory child support payments? Tom was silent, his face now furious red. I ask the court to consider. David Chen stood up, delivering the final blow, that the husband systematically spoke about the child in a deeply humiliating way. We have recordings and witnesses ready to confirm he used offensive words to describe his own daughter, was ashamed of her existence, and refused to go out with her or take her to the clinic. Transferring the child to such a parent would cause serious permanent harm to her emotional health. But she doesn't understand anything. Tom burst out, returning to his old cruel defense. She has autism. Developmental disability does not equal a lack of emotions, Mr. Bennett. The judge cut him off sharply. Children with autism are perfectly capable of sensing how others feel about them, especially a parent's rejection. And judging by the report from the child psychologist who observes your daughter, the girl actively pulls away from you and experiences significant distress in your presence. I remembered the day the rehab center's psychologist carefully asked me if everything was okay at home. Lily, who was usually loving and trusting with every stranger, would visibly shrink back and hide behind my legs whenever Tom was around. Children know. They always know the difference between love and rejection. The court rules. The judge began reading the final decision, her voice now firm and loud, that the residence of the minor, Lily Bennett, shall be with the mother, Emma Bennett Foster. The father is granted visitation rights every first and third Sunday of the month from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the presence of the mother or a person authorized by her at a neutral supervised location. In the presence of the mother. Supervised. Tom was outraged, sputtering with disbelief. I can't even be alone with my own child. Given your stated position and demonstrated attitude toward the child over the last 3.5 years, the court deemed supervision necessary for the child's emotional safety. The judge sliced through his protest. If you prove you've fundamentally changed, it can be reconsidered. But for now, this is the arrangement. Regarding child support, she continued, considering the husband's official income of $6,800 monthly. The court orders child support at the rate of 25% of all income, which amounts to $1,700 per month. What? That's robbery. Tom jumped up again. I have loans. I have bills. I won't pay that. That is the standard state-mandated rate for one child. The judge replied calmly. You may appeal, but considering that your daughter requires additional expensive medical care, specialist sessions, and lifelong therapy, the amount is more than fair and necessary. But she has tons of money herself, Tom shouted, pointing an angry finger across the room at me. Why does she need my child support? It's a punishment. Child support is the parent's obligation to support the child, the judge patiently explained. Regardless of the other parent's money situation, you do not get to give up your responsibility, Mr. Bennett. A long, heavy silence fell. Exactly, the judge nodded slowly. Furthermore, the court orders court costs to be collected from the husband payable to the wife in the amount of $2,500, as well as an award of payment for emotional distress. What emotional distress? Linda wailed, finally recovering her voice. For the systematic insults, financial neglect, and humiliation the wife was subjected to by the husband and his mother, the judge looked at Linda coldly. We have recordings, witness testimony, and message transcripts presented as evidence. The payment amount is $4,000. Tom sank into his chair, utterly defeated, his face like ash. Linda dissolved into full hysterics, and Robert frantically tried to calm his wife, looking utterly lost in the ruins of their carefully built pride. I sat there watching the scene unfold, completely detached. It was perfect cold revenge. These people had tormented me and my vulnerable daughter for 3.5 long years, using every tool of contempt and cruelty to make me feel worthless. And all that time I was quietly building my strength, constructing a self-sufficient future where their judgment held no power. The session is concluded. The judge banged her wooden hammer. The decision takes effect in 21 days. During this time the parties may file an appeal. She stood and walked out, her tired posture somehow showing justice. I got up to leave, gathering my purse and files. Tom blocked my path to the doors. Wait, Emma, we need to talk alone. About what, Tom? I looked at him calmly, his desperate, tired face giving me no pleasure, only deep indifference. Well, maybe we rushed this. He tried to put on a look of regret, an old salesman's trick. Maybe we could try again. I realize I was wrong, that I behaved terribly. But we're a family, Emma. We have a child together. We can move into your new apartment. We had a child all 3.5 of those years, I replied, my voice flat, holding up my hand to stop him from touching me. That didn't stop you from calling her broken and living with your girlfriend in her apartment. Changed. I understand now. He grabbed my arm, panic making him desperate. Listen, let's just try. I'll be different. Promise. I'll help with Lily. It's Lily, I corrected him. Her name is Lily. And no, Tom, we won't try. There is nothing left to try. I pulled my arm free and headed for the exit. Linda, her face covered with tears and makeup, lunged for my sleeve. You destroyed my son's life, she hissed, poison coating every word. Because of you, those payments, all that money. You planned this whole thing. You tricked us. I didn't plan anything, Linda, I answered, looking straight into her hate-filled eyes. I just worked. I worked tirelessly while you were busy having fun and judging me. And you know what the funniest part is? You could have benefited from all of this. You could have been a loving grandmother, helped build a business, celebrated your granddaughter's progress. You could have been proud of a daughter-in-law who built a thriving company from nothing, but you chose hate and cruelty instead. That was your choice, and you paid the price for it, just like Tom. I walked out of the courthouse, David Chen following professionally behind me into the crisp, cool air of late autumn. For the first time in many, many years, I felt truly, completely free. Lily met me at the door of the rental apartment. Chloe, my helper, a bright, patient student studying to be a teacher who got along wonderfully with my daughter, had been watching her. The girl threw herself around my neck, babbling happily. Her words still a little hard to understand at 4 years old, but her meaning perfectly clear. Mommy came back. She hugged me tight, and I felt the last of the day's courtroom tension drain away into the comforting reality of her small, solid body. How was she, Chloe? I asked, kissing my daughter's head, smelling the faint scent of crayons and sunshine in her hair. Great, Emma. We had a wonderful learning session, played outside on the balcony, and she ate all her lunch. Right, Lily? Chloe smiled at the girl. She was only a little fussy right before nap time, but that's just because she was waiting for her mama. I paid Chloe, walked her out, and finally had the quiet I wanted. I sat on the couch and pulled Lily onto my lap. She snuggled in, putting her thumb in her mouth, a habit we hadn't broken yet, and looked up at me with those clear, honest eyes. Mommy, she whispered suddenly. Daddy froze. She rarely mentioned her father. Perhaps she sensed my own feelings, the worry that had surrounded the court date. Daddy will come to visit us now, I said slowly, choosing every word carefully. Sometimes, but we'll live here alone together, sweetheart. Just you and me. Is that okay? She nodded, not fully understanding the legal words or the emotional pain, but trusting me completely. She settled her head against my shoulder, and I knew more certainly than any business decision that I had done everything right. Whatever came next, my daughter would be safe. She would have a home, care, and unconditional love. Everything that had been denied to her by the man who was supposed to be her father. That evening, Jessica, my business partner, called. So, you survived the battle. Her voice was full of protective sympathy. How did the monster handle the truth? I told her the main points. Jessica listened, throwing in emotional comments now and then. I hope that miserable piece of trash doesn't try to contact you again, she finally said. Her voice laced with anger. Though, guys like that don't quit. He'll call, try to play the sympathy card, threaten you. I'm changing my number tomorrow, I replied, looking around the small rented apartment that smelled like Tom's indifference. And I think I'll move into the new apartment next week. Why wait another 2 weeks? The apartment I had purchased a year ago was fully ready. I had been slowly moving things and decorating it with love, preparing the safe place. That's the spirit, Emma. Jessica approved enthusiastically. Start your new life. No looking back. By the way, I have some real news. Remember we discussed franchising? Franchising. We had talked about it for the last 5 months. Huge leap. Our business model was so successful and our demand so high that people were interested in copying bright minds in other states. Seriously. I brightened instantly, the weight of the courtroom lifting. Are there concrete offers? 3 cities, Emma. Denver, Miami, and Portland. People are ready to invest money. They just need our full development package and ongoing support. We're going national. We talked for over an hour, discussing the legal details, the money splits, and the growth possibilities. When I finally hung up the phone, I realized I was genuinely, uncontrollably smiling. Life wasn't just going on. It was getting exponentially, brilliantly better. The next day, I began the move, packing up the ghosts of my failed marriage along with our belongings. Lily was thrilled with the new apartment, especially her room, which I had decorated with soft yellow walls, a cozy, safe bed, and custom-made special learning tools that we manufactured ourselves. A thick, soft carpet covered the floor, perfect for playing with her therapy toys. Mine. My daughter happily announced, running into the room, her voice echoing joyfully. My room. Mine. Yours, sweetie. I knelt beside her, hugging her tightly. This is where we'll live now. Do you like your new house? She nodded hard, already distracted by the carefully arranged shelves of new colorful toys. Tom tried to call on the 4th day after the hearing. I screened the call, watching his name flash on the screen with cold amusement. He called again and again, then wrote in a text app. We need to talk. Please answer. It's an emergency. I blocked his number everywhere. An hour later, a text came from Linda's number. We want to see Lily. We're her grandparents. We have rights. Let's meet and discuss everything calmly. Little Lily, it's so cruel to keep her from us. This woman hadn't wanted to even look at her granddaughter for 4 years. Yet now she was citing her family feelings. I replied shortly. All rights are determined by the court order, Mrs. Bennett. If you wish to see the child, contact my lawyer, David Chen, to schedule a supervised neutral visit. After that, the calls and texts stopped for a week. I breathed a careful sigh of relief, deciding they had finally truly given up. But 9 days later, the real ugly neediness of Tom's spirit showed itself. I was returning home with Lily from her weekly occupational therapy session. The day was sunny, unusually warm for late autumn in Seattle. Lily was walking beside me, holding my hand, humming a simple, self-soothing tune in her own musical language. We reached the security door of the apartment building when Tom stepped out from around the brick corner. He looked awful tired, aged 10 years, with dark circles under his eyes, wearing a wrinkled, badly fitting jacket. Lily immediately clung to me, fear making her small body stiff. "Emma, please don't run away," he quickly started, his voice cracking. "I just want to talk to you. 5 minutes, no more." "I have nothing to talk to you about, Tom." I tried to walk around him, but he shuffled sideways, physically blocking the way. "Wait, please." There was genuine clawing panic in his voice. Not for me or Lily, but for his own sinking ship. "I'm ruined. You understand. The child support, the court payments. I can't even afford the rent on my place. Sophia left me, Emma. My mom isn't speaking to me anymore. And what does any of that have to do with me?" I tightened my grip on my daughter's hand, pulling her protectively behind my skirt. "You can refuse the child support. You have plenty of money, Emma. You're a millionaire. Why do you need my miserable $1,700? He reached out and grabbed my shoulder, his fingers digging in. I pulled free, stepping back quickly, my heart pounding with protective rage. "That's not my money, Tom," I said, my voice dangerously cold. "That is your daughter's money for her therapy, her development, her future. And if you think for 1 second I'll give it up just because things got difficult for the man who abandoned her. But what good is it doing her?" He raised his voice loud enough to draw the attention of a nearby resident. "She'll never be normal anyway. Why spend so much money on a lost cause?" Lily began to cry quietly, sadly, hiding her face deep in the fabric of my jacket. "Get out," I felt the true protective rage boil up inside me, blinding me to everything but her safety. "Right now, Tom, or I'm calling the police and having you arrested for violating the court order." "But it's your own fault," he persisted, his face twisted in a horrible, blaming expression. "You should have listened to the doctors. Should never have had that." "Say it," I stared him down, my eyes narrowed into cold steel. "Say the word. The word you called your own daughter all these years." He fell silent, breathing heavily, his shallow conscience finally hitting him. "You know what the worst part is, Tom?" I hugged the crying Lily tightly to me. "It's not that you're out of money or that your girlfriend left you. It's that you still don't understand what you lost. You have a daughter, an amazing, kind, smart girl. Yes, she's special, but she would have loved you fiercely if you had given her even a tiny chance. And you didn't. And now, truly, it is far too late." I walked around him and quickly brought Lily into the building. He didn't follow. Upstairs, I spent a long time rocking Lily, singing lullabies, and rubbing her back until her small shaking body finally calmed. I called David Chen and told him what happened. "That's a direct violation of the court order and harassment," he said immediately. "Ambushing you at home, scaring the child. We can file for a restriction of his rights if he continues this pattern." "Let's wait 3 days," I replied, unwilling to dive back into court. Maybe the police threat finally sunk in. But 3 days later, the story repeated itself. This time, Tom was waiting for us outside the development center, lurking by a park bench. Again, an aggressive, manipulative attempt to talk. Again, the raw humiliation. Again, a terrified Lily. I immediately filed for the restriction of his parental rights. David Chen drafted the petition, attaching witness statements and video evidence from the apartment surveillance cameras that clearly showed Tom stalking us. The restriction hearing was scheduled for early January. Strangely, Tom didn't show up. His lawyer tried to get a delay, but Judge Martinez denied it without discussion. The court ruled to restrict the father's visitation to once every 2 months, and only in the presence of an authorized caseworker from Child Protective Services. After that final ruling, Tom Bennett disappeared from our lives entirely. The child support payments, however, arrived promptly on the 1st of the month, automatically taken from his salary. I never saw him again. A year passed, blurring into 2. Lily turned 5, then 6. She started at a specialized kindergarten where dedicated, experienced teachers worked with her individualized program. She was making phenomenal progress, speaking in complex sentences, recognizing all her letters, and counting to 20. The doctor said that with this continuous high-quality approach, she would be able to attend a regular school with a full inclusion program by age 7. Our business, Bright Minds, had expanded to 9 states, then 12. The franchise model worked brilliantly. Jessica and I were discussing a move into the international market, perhaps Australia and Europe. My income grew to over $13,000 a month. I opened a huge savings and investment account in Lily's name, depositing money for her future, for her college, therapy, and anything she might ever need, ensuring her safety for life. I met Marcus at a business conference in San Diego. He manufactured highly specialized assistive technology for children with communication difficulties. We started talking about work, exchanged contacts, and soon began working together on a new line of communication devices, and then we just started dating. Marcus was divorced, his former wife having moved to the East Coast, and he didn't have children of his own. When I told him about Lily and her condition, I held my breath, waiting for the inevitable flinch, the pulling away, the mention of normal. He didn't flinch. He simply asked, "When can I meet her, Emma?" They liked each other immediately, instantly. Marcus knew how to talk to Lily. Calmly, patiently, and most importantly, respectfully. He never used baby talk or treated her like she was sick or fragile. He just accepted her for the radiant, unique person she was. You know what I realized working with these kids? He said one evening when we were sitting in the quiet of the apartment kitchen after Lily was asleep. The word normal doesn't mean anything at all. We are all profoundly different. Someone has autism. Someone wears thick glasses. Someone has terrible anxiety. They're just differences, Emma. Some are more noticeable than others. But we are all just people needing the same acceptance. I looked at him and thought, this is how it should have been all along. This is what a loving person looks like. We dated for almost 11 months before he suggested moving in together. I agreed. Not right away. I was afraid Lily wouldn't handle the change. But my daughter loved Marcus. She called him Uncle Marcus in her own special way and ran happily to the door whenever he arrived. One evening, a few months after Marcus had moved in, I received a strange text from an unfamiliar number. "This is Robert Bennett. Linda passed away yesterday. Heart attack. Tom is not handling it well and asked me to reach out. He would like to see his daughter at the funeral for closure. Please." I stared at the message for a long time. Linda was dead. The woman who had poisoned my life, demanded I abort my child, and called her a burden. What should I feel? Nothing. I felt nothing but a cold final emptiness, as if a long burning fever had broken. "I'm not going," I told Marcus, showing him the text. "And I am absolutely not taking Lily." "You shouldn't," he hugged me tightly. "No need to traumatize the child or yourself for those people." I sent Robert a brief professional reply. "My sincere condolences for your loss. We will not be attending the funeral. All future contact must go through my lawyer." A week later he called me himself. His voice was tired, the voice of a very old, broken man. "I know I have no right to ask this, Emma, but Tom is doing very badly. After his mother's death, he started drinking heavily and lost his job 2 weeks ago. He's losing his apartment for unpaid rent. He says he wants to see his daughter just once, just to say goodbye." "Say goodbye." I frowned. "Is he going somewhere, Robert?" Robert paused, a choked sound passing over the line. "He talks about ending his life," he finally whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know if he's serious, but I'm terrified. I'm old and sick. I can't keep watch over him. If something happens, I won't survive it. Fine, I sighed, the need for final closure winning out over my deep resentment. One meeting in the presence of a counselor and me, provided he comes sober and clear-headed, and only if he promises not to scare the child. The meeting was arranged the following day at the development center. Irina, the wonderful counselor who worked with Lily, knew our entire family history and agreed to supervise. Tom arrived on time. He was unrecognizable. He had lost a lot of weight, aged 10 years and 3, and looked completely gray and defeated. He was dressed neatly, but he was clearly struggling to hold himself together. Lily immediately hid behind my legs when she saw him, her small hands gripping my skirt tightly. "Hi," Tom said softly, kneeling down awkwardly to be at her level. "Lily, do you remember me? It's Daddy." She stayed silent, clinging tightly to my hand, peering at him from behind my hip. "I'm your daddy," his voice cracked, tears finally beginning to well up in his eyes. "And I want to tell you I'm sorry. Please, please forgive me." Lily looked at him carefully, studying the strange, trembling man. "I was a bad daddy," he continued, speaking to her small shoes. "Very bad one. I didn't love you. I didn't care for you. I said terrible, unforgivable things about you. And that was wrong because you are a beautiful, good girl, and I regret so much that I didn't realize it sooner." He wiped his eyes roughly with his sleeve, leaving a smudge. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said, looking up at me for the first time. "I just want you to know that it's not your fault. You're not to blame for anything. I am the one to blame, only me. And I will regret what I did to you and your mother for the rest of my life." Lily surprised us both. She slowly stepped forward out from behind my protection and extended her hand to him, not for a hug, but just her small, perfect hand, like one offers a respectful stranger when saying goodbye. "Daddy," she said clearly. "'Kay, bye-bye." Tom took her small palm in his, squeezing it gently, his face crumpling. "Bye-bye, little Lily," he whispered. "Grow up big and happy. Live well." That was our last meeting. I never saw Tom Bennett again. 2 more years passed, bringing healing and prosperity. Lily started elementary school, a regular school, in an inclusive education class. She still had difficulty with some academics, but she tried her hardest, always with a sunny disposition. She made friends instantly with a bright, chatty girl named Sophie who lived in our building. She learned to read, write, and count slowly but surely. She danced, drew, and played with her friends. I married Marcus in a quiet, intimate ceremony. We just signed the papers, had a small celebration with Jessica, Robert, and a few close friends at the suburban house, which was now a gorgeous retreat. Lily was thrilled. Marcus wasn't Uncle Marcus anymore. He was her real, kind, and loving father. Marcus officially adopted her. Tom, through his lawyer, did not object at all. Our business grew to a national level, a powerhouse in the specialized learning industry. We opened production facilities in 4 states and launched a comprehensive online platform with customized courses for parents of special needs children. I spoke at national conferences, gave interviews, and became known in specialized circles as a leading expert on autism intervention and parental advocacy. And you know what the most amazing thing of all was? I was happy. Truly, fundamentally happy. I had a beloved daughter, a loving husband, and a successful business that actually did good in the world. I had built everything I had dreamed of during those terrible, lonely days when I sat in a rented apartment with a baby in my arms, unsure of how I would face the next day. One crisp autumn evening, when Lily was 9 years old, Robert called me. I hadn't spoken to him in years. I just transferred money to him twice a year, quietly, anonymously, to help him survive. He was completely alone now and very sick. I couldn't leave the old man without help, despite everything his wife and son had done. "Tom died," he said without introduction, his voice barely a breath. 4 days ago. Liver failure. I buried him yesterday, Emma. Alone." I was silent, not knowing what to say, feeling only the lingering echo of his cruelty and the relief of his final departure. "He asked me to tell you," the old man continued, his voice cracking, "that he was grateful you let him see Lily that last time. It was the only light memory he had in his final years. "I'm so sorry, Robert," I said quietly. "Don't be," he sighed, a sound of profound exhaustion. "He chose his own path, as we all do. I would like to see my granddaughter sometime if you wouldn't mind. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm old and sick. I'll die soon, and I'd like to see her just once, Emma. Normally." "All right," I finally decided, the weight of his loneliness too heavy to bear. "Come this Sunday for an hour. You can see your granddaughter, but this doesn't mean we'll be in regular contact. This is for her, not for us." "Thank you," there were quiet tears in his voice. "Thank you, Emma." He arrived that Sunday with a huge bouquet of white and yellow roses and a large box of fancy cookies. Lily was careful with him but showed no fear. Robert sat in the armchair and simply looked at her, watching her play, never taking his eyes off her. When she showed him her latest school projects and told him about gymnastics class, he listened, nodding, and smiled the fragile, honest smile of a broken man. "She's so smart," he said quietly before leaving. "She talks so well, knows so much, and we were blind fools. We chased a ghost. Forgive us." I walked him to the door, the chill of the afternoon settling in. "You know what I finally realized?" He turned on the threshold, facing the twilight. "Happiness was right here all along, in this little girl, in you, in the truth of your spirit. And we chased after illusions, a normal child, a normal family, a perfect life. But what does normal even mean? Our Tom was normal, healthy, and conventionally successful. And where is he now? And your Lily, who is special, is living and enjoying a full, thriving life. We just didn't understand what real happiness was until it was gone. He left. I never saw him again. He died 7 months later quietly in his sleep in his empty apartment. I continued to live, raise my daughter, grow my business, love my husband, and build the future. Sometimes in the evenings when Lily was asleep and I sat in her room looking at her peaceful face in the low light, I thought about the path we had traveled, about that courtroom where my ex-husband screamed that he didn't need that burden, about the profound shock on their faces when they learned that the struggling housewife was a successful independent entrepreneur, and about how their lives built on contempt and cruelty had crumbled into dust. I didn't celebrate their downfall. Honestly, I was just indifferent. They chose their path. Chose mine. They lost everything they valued. I gained everything that mattered. That's the simple moral math of life. The one thing I knew for certain was that my girl would never ever hear that she wasn't wanted, would never feel that she was wrong or defective. She would grow up with absolute love, dedicated care, and profound respect because she deserves it just like every child on this earth. And everything else is just not important. You know, looking back now, I realize something important. Sometimes the world tries to break you just to see if you'll rise stronger. I spent years proving my worth to people who never deserved to judge me. But in the end, the only validation that mattered came from my daughter's smile. Lily taught me what unconditional love truly is. She reminded me that strength isn't loud. It's quiet, patient, and born from pain you refuse to surrender to. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. Don't let anyone define your value. You can rebuild your life from ashes, one act of love, one brave choice at a time. And when the storm passes, you'll see peace doesn't come from revenge, but from freedom and self-respect. If you feel the same way and like my story, show it by sending a like to this video. Let's see how many of us there are. I'm curious, what city are you watching from and what time is it there? Write it in the comments. If you'd like to support my journey, you can send a small donation. Thank you for listening and sharing your precious time with me. This is JAMAL'S Stories, where we share real experiences of strength, hope, and resilience. For more life stories like this, you can check out other videos on my channel and subscribe. On the screen, you'll see 2 new stories I'm sure you'll love. Click one and start listening right away. Remember, you are stronger than you think, braver than you believe, and more capable than you know. Until next time, keep fighting for what matters. Keep loving fiercely. And never, ever let anyone tell you your worth. Thank you for being here. Take care.